A while back, my romantic partner at the time asked me if I was their best friend. It didn't really make sense to me. I wouldn't sleep with my best friend. I wouldn't buy them flowers. I wouldn't be romantic towards them. I see the person who I show romance to as different from my best friend, and that difference is affection. Affection to me is linear, where the leftmost point is active harm, the middle is complete isolation and apathy, and the rightmost point being some level of care. Relationships have this aspect of affection, but also have two extra axes: familiarity and qualities. For every point in which you don't know someone, you would need a point in qualities about or affection with that person to actually have a relationship with that person. The term friend, bad friend, best friend are the three-dimensional regions we give names to when you cross these axes. However, from our individual perspectives, we can only really change one axis: affection. You can't change your blood, nor can you send your past self information to get an edge towards your future. You can only care about you in the now and what you will be in the future. And so, to affect the other two axes, you must use affection. You must care. Just because you're related to a sibling doesn't mean that you have to actively show affection. However, if you want to be friends with that sibling, you should probably be nice to them. On the opposite side, you wouldn't go up to random people on the street and ask if they like Pokemon and if they would want to be friends with you to go play more Pokemon. Now, I'm not saying you can't, I'm saying that you wouldn't, because currently, as I'm writing this, I can't imagine it working out to a relationship. Even if you're my family or people that I am familiar with, we both have to put effort into this relationship if we are going to have it. You aren't entitled to my person just because of circumstance. Now, to be fair to my partner at the time, the way I have displayed this thought is more eloquent. My gut reaction was that they were more than a friend to me and that I wouldn't consider them one due to my understanding of what a best friend was. So the conversation changed topics: the nature of what a best friend is. My understanding is that if you aren't active in one's life, effectively, you're a stranger. A person who is halfway across the world is just as far as someone 3 blocks from you if you choose not to move. A person who you've been on the phone with for an hour at this point feels like they're right there. Because of this reality, I would say that you aren't really friends with that person if you won't make the effort to see or talk to them. That person is just someone you know, and someone you just know is different from a friend. I'm not saying life doesn't get busy, but if the person you call a friend were more important than the busyness of life, you would actually see them. I think that friends are more important than the busyness of life. We asked my mom about the subject, in which she said that not only is my dad her best friend, but that she has multiple best friends, who she never sees but calls on the phone every once in a while and catches up. I argued against this by saying, people change over time and they may not be the same person you were friends with when you knew them. However, my mom and my partner agreed, so it was the end of the story. I guess my perspective is just wrong. I wanted a third opinion, so later I asked my roommate, is a person who you were friends with, regardless of what type of friend they are to you, a best friend, a bad friend, a good friend, it doesn't matter, is that person still your friend after not seeing or talking or thinking about them for 4 years? To go a little bit further with the question, how much time has to pass for them to not be your friend? My roommate, thinking about it for a moment as we waited for our food at Sasai Eat Station, only responded with, well, that person is just an old friend. I challenged this, saying that what if that person changed over the 4 years? What if they're now someone who you don't want to be friends with anymore? Or what if they're the same person all those 4 years and you're the one who simply changed? Again, my roommate responded with, they're still an old friend. And he put it so simply as though there wasn't any more to the story. Why does something have to happen for people to admit that their relationship is dead? Why can't anybody recognize that not being related to a person for a while means for that same time they haven't had a relationship with that person? I'm not talking about romance or just talking about it. I'm talking about any relationship, even enemies. You and they, as people, are constantly changing, and it's nobody's fault. I don't think you should beat yourself up about not being in a relationship with anybody, good or bad. You're not a bad person just because you or they don't care. The situation is just different than what other people think. What you are or what they are is a bad partner, a bad boss, a bad parent, a bad something. It's important to make that distinction. Would you want to be in a relationship with a bad partner or employed by a bad boss or raised by a bad parent? Well, of course not. It's okay to not consider people what they might literally be, but consider them as what they actually are to you. I wouldn't want to be friends with a bad friend. I think it's okay to admit that you're not friends with someone. And I don't think that someone who is effectively a stranger or someone you don't want to be with, public or private, is a friend. I'm not saying that you can't revive the relationship or change so that things get resolved. I'm not saying that you can't learn to just deal with it. Relationships are compromises. Compromising means that you care just enough to listen and just enough to lose. What I am saying is that in the bouts in which you see this person, you should reestablish what that person is to you and you to them. In the process of doing so, if it comes up tails, admit that you've lost them. Admit your separation. A long while later, in my senior year in college, I texted someone who I hadn't talked to in 4 years, someone I knew from elementary school. It was in text message form, so I can recall perfectly what was said, but because of privacy of the other person, I will paraphrase a bit.
Hey, sorry for not picking up the phone last night. I hope all is well.
Who am I to you? I know we've known each other for a very long time, but after falling out when we went to different middle schools, we then went to the same high school and never really connected again. It's as though there is this subtle something, which I've never really found out what that subtle something is. So, who am I?
Did you mean this for me? This doesn't sound like it's about me.
You are you, right? This isn't like a sexual romantic thing.
That's not what I assumed. I was just confused because you've always been a good friend, and I never thought we had a falling out or any bad blood at all.
Sorry for the confusion. When I said falling out, I meant going from seeing and talking daily to never talking for a long time. I meant out of touch.
Don't be sorry, I understand. But it's just what happens since we went to different schools. That's how it is with anyone.
Of course, I'm not blaming you or feeling sour about that. What I'm asking is, who am I? Who is me to you?
You are my friend. Do you consider me a friend?
The you that I know is my friend, but I find it hard to believe that you are the same person 11 years later. I don't even know if you're still looking to take over the world.
Yeah, I have mellowed out.
But that's exactly what I mean. You mellowed out, and I wasn't there for that. Who you are to me is a person who is confident and catty, a person who I've never seen fail. So is the person who you are right now someone I know enough to call a friend? You're the same human, but are you the same person? When I say my friend, you, are you the same being in my mind and words as the flesh and blood?
Hey, I'm not that philosophical, but I've always been the same person, and I assume you are too.
Okay, less philosophy. You call me a friend, but you have many friends. How do you tell me apart?
We are all unique, but I don't really spend too much time thinking so deeply because then you overthink and ugh.
I didn't reply to that last statement. I determined by the conversation there was no way I was going to get a straight answer to the question. Maybe it's because they didn't have anything nice to say or they wanted to know the right answer before they decided to take a chance. Perhaps I am just not something that they are passionate about, or the manner in which I presented the question was off putting. There are millions of things that can be assumed about the situation, and that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, who I am to this person is just a friend, which doesn't describe me, the person, in the slightest. I will continue to not be thought about by this person. I will continue to be a friend, not a human, not an individual, a friend. If this is what my roommate, my parents, my ex are talking about when they say the words best friend or old friend or just friend, then they're wrong.